want to remind you what we talked about at the beginning of the class on Monday. We talked about solving and what we needed to do to solve. We talked about simplifying, which is what is putting things together. That's what we did last week. And we talked about factoring, which is pulling things apart. And that's what we're doing this week. Today, we are going to use factoring in order to solve some equations. So you want to be sure that you look at the directions and you know if you are factoring or if you are solving. So keep that in mind as we go through our lesson today. So, students tend to remember how to factor these type of trinomials. This is a trinomial because there's 3 terms, okay? And what is in front of that x squared in both of these? A 1, okay? And we do awesome when we have an x squared plus a bx plus a c. There is no number in front of x squared. And we know there is a number there, but what's the number? 1. Okay, so we have a coefficient of 1. Okay, when we factor trinomials and we are in this situation, all we have to do is find the sum and the product. So in this situation right here, our sum is always that middle number, that b value. Our sum is our b value, and our product is our c value. Okay, and that's our constant. So in our very first one that we have, we have a product of 12. Our product right here is 12. Okay? I just take this c value right here. That's my product. What's my sum? 8. Okay? So I ask myself, what are 2 numbers multiplied together that give me 12 and added together give me 8? I'm looking for 2 numbers multiplied together give me 12 and added together give me 8. 6 and 12 are the numbers. Now I heard a 4. It would be 4 and what? 3. What is 4 plus 3? 7. Now sometimes you just kind of have to go down that list and say, oh, that doesn't work, that doesn't work. Okay? 4 and 3 are absolutely factors of 12, as is 12 and 1. The problem with 4 and 3 and 12 and 1 is the sum of those don't equal 8. Okay? So the numbers that we are going to use are 6 and 2. So all I do now is I do x plus 6 and x plus 2. That's all I do. And I have factored this trinomial. Now, this is guess and check, but I like to give students as many steps and as many things to think about as I can when we are factoring. So here we are. I want us to look at this particular product. Is this product positive or is this product negative? It's positive, okay? So in both of these, I have a positive product. Okay, now I want you to think about what kind of numbers can I multiply together to get a positive product? 2 negatives give me a positive product, and what else? 2 positives. Okay. So anytime we're factoring and I've got a positive product, my numbers are always going to be both positive or both negative. Always. Because that is the only way to get a positive product. So my numbers will have same sign. They will either be positive or they will be negative, but they will have the same sign. Okay? Now, the one on the left, what kind of sum do I have? On the left. Is that your left? Okay, good. Yes. I have a positive sum. Okay? So in the one we just did, my sum is also positive. Okay? So I have a positive product and I have a positive sum. What are my numbers? They're both what? Both numbers are positive. And do I add or subtract absolute values? Add. Okay? I'm adding absolute values because the numbers have the same sign. Now, the next one that we're about to do, what's my product? What's my product on x squared minus 10x plus 24? What is it? Good. Positive 24. And what's my sum? Negative 10. Okay, so I have a positive product, and anytime I have a positive product, I absolutely will have two numbers that have the same sign. There's no other way to get a positive product. Okay, I'm going to have two numbers that have the same sign. Now, in this situation, my sum is negative. My sum is negative. Okay? What can you tell me about my numbers when my sum is negative? They're both going to be negative. Okay? We have a positive product and a negative sum, so both numbers have to be negative. Okay? And what am I going to do with their absolute value? Am I going to add or am I going to subtract when I have the same sign? I'm going to add. Okay? So, what two numbers multiplied together give me 24 and added together give me negative 10? Negative 6 and negative 4. You're correct. Now, what if I didn't know that? What if I didn't know? If I wasn't sure? What I would do is I would come over here and I would start writing down the factors of 24. And I know they're both negative, so I've got negative 2, negative 12. That's not it. Negative 3 and negative 8. Well, that's not it. Negative 6 and negative 4. That's it. So if you can't look at it and determine what the two numbers are, start writing down those factors and start looking for what adds together to give you negative 10. Okay? So we decided that negative 6 and negative 4 are our factors. Now, we are factoring here. We are not solving, so you don't need to set anything equal to 0 and give me an x value. How do I know, even without the directions, that I'm not solving? How do we know? I heard lots of things, and I think they're all right. What is missing? The equal sign. Absolutely. We're missing the equal sign. That's how we know we're not solving. But the directions will also tell you. Like the directions to this would be factor. Okay. Can I go to the next page? Okay. Here we go. I've got two more that we're going to do. Now I'm going to put a line down the middle so that we can determine that they're both, that they're two different problems. Okay. So we're going to start the one on the left. So I've got x squared plus 7x minus 30. X squared plus 7x minus 30. What is my product? Negative 30. Good. So my product here is negative 30. So I have a negative product. Okay? A negative product. What is the only way I can get a negative product. What kind of numbers do I have to have together to get a negative product? One positive and one negative. I have to. There's no other way to get a negative product with two numbers. So when I have a negative product, I'm looking for one positive number and one negative number. Okay? That's what I'm looking for. Now, over here, what's my sum over here? Positive 7. Okay, so my sum over here is positive. Okay, my sum is positive. Now we already know that I've got to have one positive number and one negative number. We already know that. Okay, and when I am adding one positive and one negative, how do I determine what my sign is going to be? So if I'm adding positive 8 and negative 3, how do I determine what my answer is going to be? What sign is my answer going to be? Sign of the highest number. Now I'm going to add just one phrase in there. It is the sign of the number with the highest absolute value. Okay? So, what can you tell me about the number with the highest absolute value if my sum is positive? In this situation right here, I have a positive sum. Is my number with the highest absolute value going to be positive or negative? Yes. Excellent. Number with highest absolute value is positive. Now, what am I going to do with their absolute values? Am I going to add them or subtract them? I heard it. Subtract them. Okay? So I'm going to subtract absolute values. Now, you may be able to look at this and tell me what the two numbers are. Okay? But I'm going to pretend like you can't for just a second. So I am going to take my negative 30 and I'm going to start writing factors. Okay? I know that 6 times 5 is 30. I know that 6 times 5 is 30. Which one of those is going to have the negative sign if I'm looking at this set of information? The big one or the little one? Little one, okay? Because in this situation, I've determined that my higher absolute value is positive. So when I'm doing this, I'm going to put the negative sign with all of my smaller numbers. Okay? 15 and 2 equal 30. So I'm going to put my negative sign with that. 12 and 5 equals 30. And students forget about 12 and 5. Okay, 10 and 3 equals 30. No, 12 and 5 doesn't equal 30. 6 and 5. I'm thinking of 60. I'm sorry. 10 and negative 3. Which one? It's the 10 and negative 3. Good. Okay, so I have x plus 10 and x minus 3. Okay? Now, yes, ma'am. You can. Just make sure it's mathematically correct. Yes. You may have learned different methods in high school, and you absolutely can use those methods. If you have any doubt on whether or not they're mathematically correct, let me know. Okay? Okay, so right here, in this situation, n squared minus n minus 72, what's my product? Negative 72. Okay, what's my sum? Negative 1 is my sum. Even though there's not a 1 written in front of that n, it's negative 1. Okay, so now my sum is negative. Okay, I already know that I'm going to have one positive number and one negative number. If I have a sum that's negative, what can you tell me about those numbers? Good. The biggest one's going to be negative. Now I'm going to rephrase that to say the biggest absolute value is going to be negative. So number with highest absolute value is negative. And do we add or subtract absolute value? When our numbers are opposite, do we add or subtract absolute values? Subtract. Okay, subtract. Okay, so I'm going to subtract absolute values. Okay, I'm going to subtract absolute values. Okay. So, I'm going to write down some numbers for negative 72. Any ideas? 9 and 8. Good. And which one would be negative? 9, because we are looking for numbers with the higher absolute value. Okay, now that happens to be our two numbers, but I want to remind you of some other factors of 72. 12 and 6. That is one we forget. Negative 12 and 6. Okay? I think 18 will go into it. So I think we have negative 18 and 4. And then we've got negative 36 and 2. Negative 72 and 1. But that negative 12 and 6 is fair game, even though you don't have calculators. So that's one that you want to be able to divide out and see if you need it. Okay, but we determined that negative 8 or negative 9 times 8 are our numbers. So I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to have n minus 9 and n plus 8. Okay, this is not a crazy thing to take a picture of. It's got those rules. When I've got a negative product, how it works. So I'm recording it, but this is also maybe something you want to have written down in front of you. And remember, the act of writing it down helps you learn it. So just because you take a picture, that doesn't mean not to write it down in your notes. Okay? Can I go to the next screen? Okay. Take a look at these and tell me what's different. Take a look at these and tell me what's different. Good. It's not just x squared anymore. It has a number in it, a number in front of that x squared. We have an a value. Our a value is not 1. So we have to go about solving these in a slightly different way. Now, I know that you've learned the box method and you've learned the cross method. I just heard of a star method. I know that you've learned different processes along the way. I use what's called the AC method. You do not need to know the name of the method. The reason I use the AC method is it's the least amount of guess and check. Okay? It's the least amount of guess and check, and it's the most straightforward step 1, step 2, step 3. That's why I use the AC method. As long as your method is mathematically correct and you remember it correctly, then you're free to use it. But if you're not sure if you remember it correctly, because I am positive your high school teacher taught it correctly, sometimes we just don't remember it correctly. Don't hesitate to stop by. But this is called the AC method. Okay, and what's different about this is I have an a in front of my x squared. So I have a x squared plus bx plus c. Okay? Ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay? That's how this is different. So, we have to, the way that we solve this is to identify the product. Multiply A and C together. Okay? To identify the product, multiply A and C together. Sum is still our B value. Okay? So the one thing that we're changing is to get our product, we are multiplying our A and our C value together. Now, we could have multiplied our A and our C value together on the last ones that we just did. What was our A value? 1. And 1 times C is just what? C. Okay? So we still kind of did this. Our A value was just always 1. That's why it works out like it does. Okay. Students typically do okay with that. Okay? To identify the product, multiply A and C together. Your sum is still B. So, I take my A value, I multiply it times my C value. So, what's my product? In this situation, what's my product? 10. So, my product is 10. Now, my product is positive, so all of those rules that we just talked about still apply. Okay? If I've got a positive product, both positive, both negative. Okay? One or the other. Now, what's my sum in this one? 11. Okay. Okay. Our second step is the same as it was in the last one. Find two numbers that fit our sum and product. Okay, so you're going to find two numbers that fit our sum and product. So we're doing this, once we've got our product we found it a little different, but once we have our sum and our product, we're still finding two numbers that multiplied together give me 10 and added together give me 11. What are those two numbers? 10 and 1. Okay, and are they both positive, both negative? What? Positive. Okay, the other option I think is only 2 and 5, right? There's no other thing that multiplies together to give me 10. So our sum is positive, our product's positive, both numbers are positive. And this right here are our two numbers. This is the step that sometimes I lose students, right here. This is the error place. Okay? Students want to put the 10 and the 1 just like we did on the ones before. We can't do that. Okay? What you're going to do is split the B value with our new numbers. Our numbers from step 2. Okay? Now think about how FOIL works. Very often, when you have FOILed a binomial times a binomial, what do you do with those two middle terms? Okay? So if I FOILed 2x plus 1 and x plus 3, if I FOILed that, I would get I would get 2x squared plus 6x plus 1x plus 3. What happens a lot of times right there? What do? We combine them. They're like terms. Not always, but very, very often. And then we end up with something that looks like this. Now remember, when I talked to you about FOILing or factoring, I told you we were working backwards. Remember? So we're going from our trinomial to our 4-term problem. We're just working it the other way. Okay? So this right here, number 3, I am splitting this. So I'm going to have 2x squared plus 10x plus 1 plus 5. Whoops, I need a 1x. Okay? 2x squared plus 10x plus 1x plus 5. I've just split that 11x. 10x plus 1x is still 11x. Anybody know what we can do now that we have 4 terms? Okay, we don't want to combine like terms because we're working backwards, but that is a good suggestion. How can I? Yes, absolutely. You factor by grouping. Okay, and we know how to do that. And it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so I am going to look at these 2 terms right here. What comes out of both of those? What comes out of 2x squared and 10x? 2x. Okay, this is what we did on Monday. 2x times what gives me 2x squared? X. 2x times what gives me 10x? 5. Okay, now I want to look at these 2 right here. 1x plus 5. At first glance, what do we notice? What can I take out of both of those? It's just the 1. Now, sometimes students will say, well, nothing, Alicia, but it's not nothing. It is 1. Okay? So you pull a 1 out of here. And that's super important that we pull that 1 out. So I have plus 1. Okay? Now, x plus 5 is one of our factors. How do I get my other factor? 2x and 1. Okay? And we talked about that on Monday. So my final answer here is 2x plus 1 and x plus 5. That's my final answer right there. Okay? Now, we're going to do it again. Okay. 10x squared minus 17x plus 3. We're going to go through this process. To identify the product, multiply A and C together. What's my A? 10. What's my C? 3. 10 times 3. What is that? 30. Okay, and it's positive. So I've got product of positive 30. What's my sum? Negative 17. So I have a positive product and a negative sum. So what can you tell me about my 2 numbers? They're both negative. Both negative. Okay? So, I'm going to look at some factors of 30. Okay? And my numbers are both going to be negative. We already did negative 6 and negative 5. Does that equal negative 17? Nope. Negative 10 and 3? Or negative 10 and negative 3? Is that it? No? Do I have another one? Yes, 15 and 2, and they are both what? Excellent. Excellent. Now, this is where students make their mistake, is right there. You split it. Okay? So I am going to have 10x squared minus 15x minus 2x plus 3. Okay? So now we're going to factor by grouping. What comes out of the first two? 5x. 5x comes out of the first two. Okay? 5x times what gives me 10x squared? 2x. Good job. 5x times negative 15x, 5x times what gives me negative 15x? Negative 3. Good job. Now, take a peek at your notes from yesterday. And I said, when I've got a negative for that third term, when I have a negative for that third term, what does that indicate I've got to do for my last two terms? When I've got a negative for that third term, what do I have to pull out of those last two terms? -1, okay? Students forget that. They forget they've got to pull that -1 out. But if we don't pull that -1 out, I need a bigger screen. 2x minus 3. Okay, if I don't pull that -1 out and I just pull 1 out, I get negative 2x plus 3. Is negative 2x plus 3 the same as 2x minus 3? Is negative 2x plus 3 the same as positive 2x minus 3? It's not. Okay, so I've got to have the same exact thing there. Okay? So this factors to 5x minus 1 and 2x minus 3. 5x minus 1 and 2x minus 3. Okay. Can I go to the next one? Can I go to the next one? Okay, here we go. These are two separate problems. Two separate problems. I want you to try the 6x squared minus 11x minus 10. I want you to try by yourself. What's your product? Good. What's your sum? Good. What type of numbers am I looking for? They're not both negative. One negative, one positive. Okay, keep going. What are my two numbers? Good. Which one's positive and which one's negative? Good. So we've got a negative 15 and a positive 4. Our bigger number is negative because our sum is negative. So you're going to split this right here. So you have 6x squared plus 4x minus 15x minus 10. Okay, and you guys keep going. What comes out of the first two? Excellent. 2x comes out of the first two. 2x times 3x gives me 6x. 2x times 2 gives me 4x. Okay? What does this right here indicate? What does that negative at your third term indicate? I've got to pull out a negative. Okay? And in this case, is it negative 1? No, it's not negative 1. It's negative what? 5. Negative 5. Okay? So I have to pull out a negative 5. So then I'm left with 3x plus 2. How'd we do on that? Are we getting it? Are we remembering? Yes, ma'am.
If we write the 4x in the negative 15x,
Absolutely.
opposite?
Yes. That is an excellent question. Okay? So the question is, what if you wrote the negative 15x first? Am I correct? Is that what you're asking? I actually wrote it this way on purpose because I wanted you to have to pull the negative out. But if you wrote it like this, you are still going to get the exact same answer. Okay? I can pull a 3 out of my first two. So I have 3x times 2x minus 5. Then I pull a 2 out of the second two, and I get 2x minus 5. So did I get the same thing? Yes, that is an excellent question. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, and 3x plus 2 times 2x minus 5 and 2x minus 5 times 3x plus 2 is the same thing. What is not the same thing is if I reverse those negatives. Okay, so if I had 2x plus 5 and 3x minus 2, that is not the same thing. Okay? Okay. So I don't want to spend a ton of time on this next one because when I do, students decide every single answer is not factorable. But I do want you to look at this right here. What is the sum I am looking for in this situation? Positive 36. What's the sum that I'm looking for? Yeah. Ooh. What's the sum I'm looking for? 6. Okay, the sum is 6. Okay, when I start doing factors of 36, they're both positive because I've got a positive sum and a positive product. Do any of them work? No, none of them work. Okay, so the answer to this one is not factorable. And that happens, but don't expect there to be a lot of them. Don't expect there to be a lot of them. Okay? Can I go to the next screen? Yes. Okay. Am I good now? Okay, here we go. What's different? Got an equal sign. So we are using factoring to solve equations. Okay? We are using factoring to solve equations. Now let's go through some steps here. The very first thing that we have to do in this situation right here is we've got to set the equation equal to 0. If you don't set the equation equal to 0, there's going to be some problems, okay? You're not going to get the correct answer. You're not going to be able to use a rule. So you got to set the equation equal to 0, okay? Is this already set equal to 0? Yes, this is already set equal to 0. So then your next step is to factor. We're going to factor this, okay? So we're going to factor it. I've got a negative product and a negative sum. My product is negative 12. My sum is negative 11. What is it? What are my two numbers? Good, excellent. X minus 12 and x plus 1. X minus 12 and x plus 1. So I have factored. Okay? My next step is to set each factor equal to 0. Set each factor equal to 0. So I'm going to do x minus 12 equals 0 and x plus 1 equals 0. And my fourth step is to solve each one. You're going to solve twice. You're going to solve twice. Okay, so I'm going to say plus 12 to both sides on this one. I get x equals 12. I'm going to subtract 1 on both sides, and I get x equals negative 1. Okay? Okay, can I move off this screen? Okay, because of time, I'm not going to be able to do this next one because I've got one more that I want to do. This is more complex only because we have an A value, okay? This is exactly like the ones that we were factoring. This is already set equal to 0, okay? Already set equal to 0. You just have to factor it the same ways that we've been factoring, okay? So, just wanted to show that at you. You will get some fractions for that, and it's okay. It's okay. Now, tell me about this problem. Students look at this and they're like, ugh. What is the first thing you notice about this problem? I need to distribute. Good. Okay, what's the second thing you notice? It's not equal to 0. Okay? So the first thing I have to do is I do have to distribute. So I am going to multiply and set equal to 0. Okay, I'm going to multiply and set equal to 0. Okay, 9a times a is 9a squared. 9a times 1 is 9a. Okay, does that look a little bit more manageable? It does. It looks a little bit more manageable. Okay, what am I going to do with that 4 now? Absolutely. I'm going to subtract it. And when I subtract it, I get 9a squared plus 9a minus 4. Okay. Is it set equal to 0? Yes. So now I can factor it. Now I can factor it. What's my product that I'm looking for? Negative 36, and you get that by multiplying your A value times your C value. What's my sum? Positive 9. Positive 9. So my product is negative 36, and my sum is positive 9. What can you tell me about my two numbers? My two numbers are going to be what? What can you tell me about them, about their signs? They're going to be opposite signs, okay? Because we have a negative product, opposite signs. Which one's going to have the greater absolute value? The positive number. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay? So, I know 9 times 4 equals 36. And the 4 would be negative. What else equals 36? 12 and 3. Which one would be negative? 3. Did we just find it? We did. Okay. So now I split this term. I have 9a squared plus 12a minus 3a minus 4. What comes out of 9a squared plus 12a? Sorry, guys, I know we're out of time. I'm going to take 3a out of the first one. I'm going to get 3a plus 4. I'm going to take negative 1 out of the second one. Okay, so my factors are 3a minus 1 and 3a plus 4. I set each one equal to 0, and I solve. And I will get fractions. Okay, for this one, I get 1/3. For this one, I get negative 4/3. Okay.